everybody, welcome back to Making Stuff with Mrs. Brody. I'm Mrs. Brody. This is Tila Monster. She can never leave me alone, so I figured I'll just pick her up and then she won't bother me or knock over the camera today. So what we're going to be working on today is a project that isn't necessarily something that you're going to copy exactly at home, but something that should inspire you and give you some good ideas for what you can do at home. Hopefully, Tila Monster doesn't make too much of a mess today. Let's get started. All right, ladies and gents, before we begin, if you hear any sort of weird background noise, that's Tila Monster playing with a toy. She's running back and forth. You can't see her, but you can probably hear her. What we're gonna do today is some tie-dyeing, and I know that I've done tie-dyeing in the past. You can look through my other videos, but instead of tie-dyeing clothes, we're gonna be tie-dyeing some shoes today. I picked up these really fabulous white boots at a store a few months ago. I was out with my sister shopping, as one does, and I found them and didn't have a really good plan at first, but I knew that they were a great canvas for some kind of art stuff. And I've painted shoes in the past, and I didn't want to do that again, so I thought tie-dye might be a really great idea. And instead of just jumping in, like I usually do with my projects, I did a little research, because these shoes are really great, and they're a little expensive, and I don't want to ruin something just by diving right in. So I did a little research, and found some tape. It was actually recommended by my mom. It's called frog tape. And what I'm going to use this tape for is blocking off this bottom part of the shoe so it doesn't get tie-dyed. So that's one piece of research that was really helpful. If I used regular painter's tape, it might have bled and then the result wouldn't have been great. So that's step one. Step two is I had some tie-dye left, like these big containers, but not enough colors. But I did have a lot of the extra packets left over. And I needed to know how to use these packets, but I didn't have the container they came in. So I did a little research, and I can mix it up kind of my own, depending on how much of the powder I use. You'll have a deeper saturation of color, more water, kind of like watercolors. It'll dilute the color and then won't be as dark or as bright. So I got these little tiny cute bottles, number one, so I wouldn't mix up and waste too much dye, but also I thought this would be really handy when I'm trying to put it on my shoe, whereas if I was using the big bottle, that wouldn't work very great. So I think that I have a pretty good plan of what I want to do. I did some sketches to kind of decide, did I want to paint lines on first? Did I want to block any lines off? But I think what I'm going to do is just fill it with all the colors of the rainbow. I also thought about doing some blues, but if you know me or you're one of my students, I have a lot of blue clothes already that I tie-dyed, so I don't really need any more of that. I have my surface prepped, which we'll talk about in a minute, and I'm going to make sure I have everything ready to go, and Tila Monster is far, far away before we get started, okay? And again, this isn't something that you need to copy exactly, but maybe you found a great shirt somewhere, or you were at Goodwill and found some really nice white Vans or something that you want to tie-dye. This is just to give you some ideas of the prep you might need and some inspiration for what you might want to do at yours. All right. So this is just about everything I'm going to need for my project. I have prepped my work surface and put a nice thick piece of plastic down so nothing is going to get on my really nice table. I'd be doing this in my studio, but it's a sort of in flux and being picked up and stuff, so I don't have a lot of room in there. So I'm in my dining room today. So prepping my surface so Mr. Brody doesn't get mad when I spill paint everywhere. I have my frog tape, I have my shoes, I have my little bottles and my dye, and then I have gloves because I don't want to get my hands all wet. And you can see I've already used these gloves, but only a little bit, so I'm recycling them and using them again. I also have a plastic bag, so when I'm all done, I can put my shoes in it and they can sort of sit and marinate for those 24 hours. Now, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be opening my frog tape up. I've never used this before. I'm very excited. So it's just this green tape. And what happens is, the reason why it's better than regular painter's tape is, boop, when you put paint against the edge here, this edge actually swells up and almost acts like a dam, so nothing can get underneath it. So what I'm going to use this green tape for is I'm going to tape it all around the edge of my shoe so nothing gets on that bottom part. I'm not super concerned about the zipper. I kind of want that to blend in. And I don't think, because I have a little experience with tie-dye, I don't think it's going to dye these rivets very much. And if it does, I'm not super upset about that. You might have noticed that I definitely put or took the shoelaces out. That's because I wanted them to be a nice stark white up against these shoes. And once I put it all together, I might decide I want colored shoelaces, and then I'll just go buy some. So I'm going to get to taping. I'm not going to show you that process. It's just taping. I'm just going to make sure it runs up right against that line, and it's going to take a lot of tape, and it's going to be a little boring. So I'm going to do that, and then we'll come back and I'll show you the next steps we're going to do. All right, gang, I think I'm all set and ready to start tie-dyeing. Ooh, I'm a little nervous. So if you look at my shoes, I have covered the whole bottom with this green tape, and I ran my finger along the edge and made sure it was really stuck down. And you might notice that there's lots in small pieces rather than a whole bunch of big pieces. I did that for a couple of reasons. One, it made really good coverage. And two, by overlapping them, I kind of made sure that this part was covered as well. I ended up getting 2 different sizes of frog tape. So I had one that was a little bit bigger and then one was a little bit thinner. And I used both of them for this project. I think honestly, whatever size you get should be fine as long as you don't get like the super teeny tiny ones. So I'm gonna move these out of the way for now because I don't want them to get splattered. And I'm gonna put on my rubber gloves. Now, the kits that you get for tie-dye come with rubber gloves, but they're not the best gloves in the world. See how these ones fit me nice and tight? The other ones are a little more loose and they're not gonna work as well, I don't think. So I made sure that I had a few of these. I ended up getting a package, I think, at a local grocery store. So I have my gloves and I don't have any of my rings on, so hopefully they don't break the gloves out. And now I have my little bottles, I have my packets of color, and I have a big pitcher of water. Normally I would just do this in my sink, but I didn't want to set up at my sink. So you guys are watching me doing it at the table today. I'm going to take each little bottle and unscrew the cap. And then I'm going to take my pair of scissors and I'm going to cut just a corner of the packet of my color. That way, when I lay it to the side, it doesn't spill everywhere. And when I'm all done, I can maybe put these in another small container to save again, or I could put them in like a sandwich bag or something like that. You could also maybe fold them over and give it a little tape, and that should work as well. Now, when I'm doing this, I'm going to start with a little bit of color at a time. If I really wanted to be careful, I could get like a scrap piece of fabric and do a little squirt on it to see if it's dark enough. But honestly, I'm just going to put it on my shoe, and if it's not quite dark enough, I'm going to add some more. And if it's too dark, I'll dump some out and add some more water. So when I do this very carefully, I made sure I put my gloves on first because this will dye you even if you don't get it, if you don't have the water in it. So I am taking the yellow first. Oh, real quick. You might not have noticed, but I only used 5 colors. I don't have orange because I know that orange is going to mix up with the red and yellow, and red is a really bossy color. So I think that if I did orange, things would end up looking a little too like warm colory, and I want it to be a nice mix of warm and cool colors. So I've put, I don't know, maybe a third of the package in there. I'm going to move that to the side. And now I'm going to take my pitcher and I'm going to carefully fill it almost all the way up. I want to save a little bit of space. And then I put the lid back on, and I love that these ones that I got came with these little red caps. I'm going to put my finger here because you never know. There is a story I'll share another time of me and my brother getting Alfredo sauce all over the kitchen because we did not make sure the cap was on things. So that one looks mixed up pretty well. There isn't any powder in the bottom. And I think that looks like a nice bright yellow. So I'm going to set that aside, and I'm going to keep cruising with the rest of my colors. Okay, what you can see here is my setup. I have all my dyes all mixed up. I have my shoes. What you don't see off camera is I have my extra water off to the side of my extra packets. I also have some paper towels. You can see I've already kind of cleaned up my space a little bit because I spilled some powder and I didn't want it to get on the bottom of my shoes. What I'm going to do now before I start is I'm noticing there's just a little bit of leakage from my bottle. So I'm kind of cleaning that up a little bit so it doesn't drip where I don't want it to on my shoes. And then I'm just going to go for it, my friends. I don't have any particular plan. I am going to keep my color wheel in mind. So I'm going to think about my analogous colors. So colors that are next to each other on the color wheel. Blue and green is going to look really good next to each other. Red and purple, yellow and green. And I'm going to keep in mind my complementary colors. So I don't want to necessarily put purple next to, oop, that's blue. I don't want to put purple next to yellow. If I do that, going to look a little brownish. If it happens a few times, it's tie-dye. No one's going to be like, that one part of your shoe looks like poo. They're not going to do that. But I want to try not to let that happen too much. So I think I'll start with blue. I'm going to take a deep breath and be brave. Who knows what's going to happen? Pop the top. What you also don't see off camera is Tila Monster sitting on my little stool next to the table, definitely eyeballing me. So hopefully she stays right where she is. All right, I'm going to move one shoe out of the way. Start with the left shoe, lucky left, and we're just gonna go for it, my friends. Let's see how well the paint or the dye absorbs into the shoe or if it sits on it. Ooh, I can see that it's kind of sitting on there a little bit. So if I tip my shoe, it'll maybe move. Yeah, it moves a little bit. Nice. So you know what I think I'm gonna do, my friends, is I'm gonna pause, and I think I'm gonna go get a little spray bottle from upstairs and see if I spray my shoes a little bit, if that helps. Okay, back with the spray bottle. This is just a little spray bottle I got at the grocery store. I usually use it to tame my hair in the mornings a little bit. And let's try it here on the tongue and see if spraying it with water helps it spread a little bit more. Not soaking it, just getting a little bit damp, and let's see what happens. Let's go back to our blue. Oh yeah, that worked out much better. So I'm gonna spray my shoe a little bit all over. Freak out Tila Monster a little bit. I'm kind of spraying the inside and the outside just so the whole thing gets a little bit damp. All right, so we know the blue works and it's spreading around, so let's open the rest of our bottles. There we go. There's purple and red. Oh, now my other kitty cats come to investigate. I got both kitty cats over by my camera. Hopefully it doesn't go flying around. All right, so let's put some green next to our blue. Nice, look at that. I wonder what happens if I spray it after I put it on. Comes out a little bit. I like it. So I'm just gonna keep cruising, my friends. I'll put this on time lapse so you can watch the process, but it's just gonna be me putting dye on my shoes. I'm very excited. Look at these shoes. How amazing are these? I'm so excited. So for cleanup, what I'm going to do is put these shoes in this plastic bag really carefully and tie it off and put it somewhere where the kitties can't get to it. I'm going to dump out this dye because I don't think it should be sitting around. I'm not going to do tie-dye for a while, and I'm not worried about wasting that much dye, but I am very glad I used these little bottles so I didn't waste even more. I'm going to dump it out just because if I put it in the garbage, it's garbage night, and it probably won't leak anywhere, but I don't want like a rainbow streak across my floor. So I'm gonna put these in a bag. I'm gonna tie it off and leave it for about 24 hours. And then when we come back, I'll show you how to remove the tape carefully and rinse them off and get them washed and dried. And then you guys get a little fashion show of my feet with my shoes on. I'm so excited. I'll see you guys back when it's time to get them out. All right, guys, so it's been a little bit more than 24 hours and my boots have been sort of marinating in the bag for a little bit. And now it's time to rinse them out. So there's a couple tips that I have because I've rinsed out a few tie-dye things before. You can't see her, but Tila is all over my lap right now. Definitely checking out the boots. Do you want to come say hi? No, I want to play. Now she's biting my hand. She's such a terror. So some of the tips I have. With these boots, the tape is still on the bottom part of them. I'm not going to remove that before I start rinsing. I'm going to rinse, and then I'm going to remove the tape. I think that'll help with the dye not getting on that part of the part of the shoe that I don't want to get dyed. My goodness, stop that. So I'm gonna leave the tape on, and when I rinse, I'm gonna hold them upside down so that the sole of the shoe will be facing up, and then the ink and everything will drip out of it. Then we don't have to worry about it getting on the bottom part either. I'm gonna use cold water. I'm not really sure if you're supposed to use cold or hot, but I'm going to use cold water, and I'm going to do it in my big paint sink, which is already filthy and disgusting, so it's okay that I get dye on it. If you don't have a paint sink at your house, which I assume you probably don't, I would maybe do this outside in the driveway maybe with the hose. Most of you guys probably have the sprayer thing on your hose, so you could change it so it's not like a solid stream of water, but more of like, you know, a shower head. And I'm going to use the sprayer on my sink as well. When we're rinsing, we need the water to run pretty clear. I'm not expecting it to be totally clear, That's okay. And normally we would wash things before we wear them. So we'd rinse them, we'd wash them and dry them, and then we'd have them to wear. With these shoes, I might run them through the washing machine, but because they're so big and clunky, I'm a little worried about my washing machine. I think what I'm probably going to do is just rinse them really, really well and then let them air dry and see how that goes. We'll talk more about it at the end of the video, maybe about sealing them with something, but I still got to do a little bit of research on that. So for now, we're going to do a little rinse-ky in the sink, and then they're going to air dry for a couple of days. I will say the people that have seen my little tease on Instagram for this video have been very excited to see it, and I'm very excited to see them as well. So let's get to rinsing. Okay guys, so welcome to my kind of gross sink in my studio. I'm unwrapping my shoes right now, and if you're worried, you could totally put on gloves for this, but I'm lazy and I'm not going to do that right now. I'm not too worried about it getting on me. So look at them. I'm so excited. So the tape has gotten a little bit of dye on it, and so has the bottom. See how it's kind of dyed the bottom of my shoe a little bit? So that's what we didn't want all over this white part. So in typical Mrs. Brody fashion, if we've made a mistake and some of that dye has gotten on the bottom, we're just going to roll with it, and then maybe instead of keeping this part white, we'll paint it because it got dyed. We won't really know till we remove the tape. So I'm taking this plastic bag, and I'm actually behind me. This is my studio sink, but also is my bathroom. So behind me is our toilet, and I'm going to set this plastic bag on the toilet. So as I get done rinsing, I can put my boot on it, and then it's not dripping all over my bathroom. So I'm just going to put that back there. Boop. Or roll up my sleeves. I'm going to move one of these guys out of the way. All right, so I'm going to turn on my cold water. And I'm going to start rinsing my boot off. So I'm going to turn this to the spray, and I'm going to hold it upside down. I'm spraying my boot, and you can see the water's running pretty clear. The boot did a really good job of absorbing the dye. So I'm just going to keep rinsing here, and then I'll show you what they're like at the end. So my boots have been rinsed off, and now kind of the moment of truth to see if our super awesome Linda Sue recommended tape has worked, and I think it has. I'm so excited. Should have grabbed a pair of scissors. Look at that. It worked. Oh my gosh, I'm so excited. So excited. I am gonna wipe it off a little bit. So I'm gonna try and dry these sort of upside down, or at least so the sole is facing up. So as it dries, none of that water even comes close to the sole of my boot. So I'm going to keep taking the tape off the other one, and then they're just going to dry, and then we'll come back and see what they look like. All right, so how excited are you to see the finished product? I am so excited to show you. So I did lace them up a little bit with the white shoelaces. I'm thinking I really like that look, but I might change my mind another time and put in some colorful shoelaces. But for now, well, bam! Look at that. Look how colorful they are. And I got nothing down on the bottom thanks to that awesome frog tape. I am using that in all kinds of projects now. Look at how sweet these are. So if you end up doing boots like me, there are so many videos and images out there of different ways you can lace up the boots. I just kind of made something up as I went along. So now I'm going to put them on and see what they look like on my feetsies. So excited. All right, friends, so that's it. That's the whole video. I hope it inspires you to do a little bit of tie-dyeing on your own, especially some really fun shoes. Don't feel like you have to go and buy white shoes to make this happen. You can go to the thrift stores and other discount areas, maybe some yard sales here in the fall, and see if somebody's got some white shoes or some light colored shoes you can dye. I really hope it inspires you to be creative and do your own project at home. Make sure that you are being safe, that you're being kind, and that you're being creative. And I'll see you next time. Bye.